The world we live in is a very stressful, it's a very individualistic, a very secular society.
People are hungering after a truth that they can't find.
The world needs labor now.
The Bible has as much relevance today as it did 4,000 years ago.
If we don't do anything, the stones will speak.
The vision is to take ancient truths to reach the people of today.
Experience medical missionary training, experience practical application,
Physiology,
Evangelism, disease and treatment.
People are not looking for what secular society can offer them, but a genuine experience.
Hello, my name is Lee Wellard, and I'm the owner and founder of the American Herb Shop in Maine, in USA. And today I'd like to share with you my journey, how I got into this field of natural medicine, and just share a little bit about how God has led in my life. Growing up in Australia, I had a mother that was a herbalist. And I was the guinea pig, and she used to bring home all these concoctions, and I used to try to hold my nose and hope for the best. And so that was my introduction to herbal remedies. Little did I realize later in life that I would actually be teaching about these wonderful remedies. I grew up, first of all, in England before I went to Australia, and came from a very secular background. Ended up becoming a dance instructor, professional ballroom dance instructor at the age of 18. And it was something I had aspired to achieve in life, and I thought it was one of the ways I could make a name for myself. But I found in my life that it was not all the glamour and tinsel that I thought it was going to be, and found my soul in need of change. And that's when God came into my life, and he came in a very profound way, and changed my heart and gave me a desire for things that I never before had dreamed of, and led me into the field of natural remedies. You know, in life we have points where we realize that, you know, what the world has to offer is not really meeting the soul need, and you can never get enough of what you don't need. And I found that my spiritual desire became something that just grew, and God reached me where I was. Actually, it's the only place God can reach us is where we are. And he gave me a desire to learn of health and to share health. When I was in my early 20s, I started picking up health books, and my mother had always drilled me into healthy living, although I must admit that I never ate one healthy meal in the first 20 years of my life. I was onto junk food. I didn't do that well at school. Couldn't wait to get out of school, actually. I always tell people my education began when I left school, and I realized in a short amount of time that the skills for life were very much lacking. But God gave me a desire to learn, and he cleared my mind. I remember when I was about 15 years of age, I could hardly read a paragraph. but at the time I became a Christian, my brain just expanded, opened up, and I just became a bookworm and studied uh, lots and lots of books and became very interested in how I could best help with in the area of health and also spiritual things. And little did I realize that God was going to lead me into a field of study that was going to help so many people. I was very fortunate and blessed. God put a wonderful lady in my life. At the age of 32, I was married, um, and the lady he put me in touch with actually was a medical missionary, and we worked at a lifestyle center. For those who aren't familiar with lifestyle centers, they're places you can go to recover from lots of chronic diseases using natural methods of healing, using dietary measures, exercise, uh, botanical agents, water treatments, things that would assist the body in recovery of disease. And so I ended up at a place called Wildwood Lifestyle Center and Hospital in Georgia. And there I met my wife behind the desk. And it was several months later we were married, and we soon became very interested in going overseas to the Philippines to do medical mission work. And I had been to the Philippines several times before, but this time I felt that we were there for a longer period of time. In fact, I thought we would probably be there till the Lord comes. And we went over there with the intention to help other people get training in health education, in natural remedies. And at that time, I had done quite a bit of study, but I wasn't an expert in the field of natural remedies. And little did I realize how God was going to lead in a very profound way. My wife at the time actually 6 months after we got there, she got chronically sick with a severe case of insomnia that lasted nearly 6 years. And my wife had a healthy lifestyle, and it was very hard to understand how this was happening. And I, in a way, felt a little bit upset with God that He would allow us to go through such an ordeal. She could not sleep every night past 12 o'clock. And so she was getting very little sleep, and she was getting fatigued. And of course, depression kicked in after a while. And it greatly affected our ministry. And after about 2.5 years, we had to fly back to England, finish our stay there, and ended up going to Wildwood Lifestyle Center again in Georgia, and seeking answers, seeking answers to why is this happening, how this could possibly have happened in the first place, what the causes were, and try to look at natural ways we could assist her body to recover. We were on a journey because this wasn't something that happened overnight, and in spite of many efforts and many things that we took, she wasn't getting any better. And so we spoke to various experts. We spoke to different doctors and people who were very skilled and knowledgeable in the area of sleep deprivation, but no one could pinpoint what the cause was, what was really going on physiologically. And it was a little discouraging. I'm sure that in your life, you've had times where you've been in darkness and perplexity. You've been sick and you haven't understood how you got there, and you've tried different things and they haven't seemed to work, or they work just temporarily, and then you get worse after that. And so at that particular time, it was quite a dark time. We had lost a child, and my wife's health was progressively getting worse to the point where she may require hospitalization. And she was only in her 30s as well, which made it a lot harder. In the process of time, my wife read a book on herbs, and at this point, I wasn't very knowledgeable when it came to using herbal remedies. Even though I said my mother was a herbalist and I had studied a little bit on herbs, but I wasn't really that convicted that they were much good or as good as some people would make it out to be. And I just want to make it clear, I'm not saying there's a 100% cure for insomnia. I'm not saying that there's one remedy that works 100% of the time for 100% of people. But being involved in this type of work, I've seen how God has used these simple remedies to have a profound effect on people's lives. And I'm happy to say that the majority of time, anyway, we see that these things work. But there was a herbal textbook, a medical herbal textbook that my wife picked up that actually I hadn't read myself, even though I bought it for my school. And she came across a particular herb called oat straw. And its botanical name is Avena sativa. And this particular herb is very high in minerals and it helps feed the nervous system. And so she thought she would try it. What did she have to lose? There was a herb shop on campus where people could buy herbs, so she purchased about a pound of this herb and she made a tea out of that, and she drank quite a bit actually, and within 3 days she was back to 8 hours sleep a night, and that really got my attention. If you've ever had a sickness that has been for a protracted period of time and something is working, you want to tell everyone, right? And you sort of shout it from the rooftops. So that really got my attention because nothing else up to that point had worked. And you're also sort of holding your breath, hoping that it will continue to work, but it lasted permanently. And she used that tea for about 3 months. She's not on it now to use it for that particular problem. And let me just explain. There are different herbs for different conditions depending on the cause of that condition. So if you have insomnia, oat straw may or may not work depending on what the underlying cause is. So this is particularly useful for people who have nervous disorders where they have prostrated nerves. Just like we lose B vitamins when we get stressed, we also lose these precious electrolytes, these minerals that power the nervous system. And so we didn't realize she was so depleted in those electrolytes. And so the oat straw helped feed those nerves, and it helped give the nervous system the elements that it needed to be able to restore itself. And so in a short amount of time, we started seeing some tremendous results, and praise God, we just were able to get enough faith from that experience to also use other remedies for other conditions. I guess our ministry has sort of blossomed out of our own health challenges, right? So God doesn't waste suffering, and even though at the time we can't understand why we go through certain things, God can use that. Not to say He brings that upon us, but He can use our experience to help someone else in their extremity. And so I tell people that our suffering is someone else's remedy. So that really got my attention, and we also used herbs for hormonal balancing. In fact, there was a particular herb called chasteberry, and at this time my wife was more interested in herbs than I was. I just sort of sat on the sidelines and just watched these herbs do their work. And she had perimenopause at the age of 34, which of course is very young for a lady to experience. And so she tried a herb called chasteberry, and within a couple of weeks, she was pregnant. Now, we had tried for years to have a child, but were unable. We had a miscarriage, or maybe 2 or 3 actually, and the doctor did some tests on her and found her hormones were all over the place. So when she took Vitex, it really made a profound difference. It also helped her with PMS issues. 2 weeks out of the month, she had PMS issues and painful cramping. And after taking chaseberry or Vitex, it just normalized. It cleared up, and this happened month after month after month, year after year. And so we were so thankful for this wonderful herb. And by the way, Vitex, just to let you know, is a hormonal normalizer, and it works on the hypothalamus pituitary axis that governs all the ladies' reproductive hormones, especially works on the luteinizing hormone, which causes the production of progesterone, and from progesterone you get all the other hormones. So that really made a world of difference, and it brought a new life into the world. And I know God is the one that opens the womb, He's the one that gives life, but He also uses chemistry. He's a master chemist, and He's placed in nature some powerful properties that can help stabilize the hormones. And so we're really thankful for that. Well, we thought that was going to be it. We have one child, and we were thankful. But after seeing 3.5 years of selfishness in our son, we thought he needed a sibling. So we tried again, and we got another little girl. She also tried using the Vitex as well, and within a few days she was pregnant again, and we had our second child at around the age of 43. And now we use herbs to keep up with them and herbs to calm them down, so that works really well. And now we're in our 50s, and we're still using these wonderful agents that God has given us to help us through many difficulties. When we had our first child, his name is John, he's now nearly 12 years of age, he couldn't breastfeed. My wife had Raynaud's syndrome of the breast, so the milk wasn't letting down, and that made it difficult for him to get the nourishment that he needed. And there's no substitute for mother's milk. And so he was actually getting sick half his life, and we thought there's got to be something that we can do to help him. And it's not easy when you see a child sick all the time, and he would get congestion and runny nose and fevers. And one time we thought we could lose him. He had such a bad case of sickness. But we did some research, and we found a herb called elderberry, and we thought we'd give that a try, see if that doesn't help him. And within a short amount of time, he was doing much better. In fact, his sickness was nowhere near the level it was before. It did not necessarily stop him getting sick, but it definitely reduced the time he was sick. And instead of being sick half his life, he was maybe sick 5 to 10% of his life. So that was a big improvement for us and for him. And we were really, really thankful for that remedy. So it's been a journey for us, because we've been in the dark a number of times with particular problems that we've been seeking answers for. And then God in His mercy has brought us a remedy to use. And at that time, even though we were trying out these things, using these things for our own health, others started to inquire, what are you doing, and how's it work, and can you make some for us? And so that led us to get into making different things for different people. And that, in fact, developed into making products and making formulas. And ultimately, we ended up making a full-time ministry out of the botanicals. And then I got into teaching. I did some further studies as a holistic health practitioner, master herbalist, and naturopath, and taught at various places around the country, overseas. Ended up teaching Andrews University. Also started two botanical remedy stores, and one in Michigan, one in Indiana. And we have an online store. It's for those who are interested, it's www.americanherbshop.com. And as we say in Europe, herb shop. In America, it's herb shop. And shop is SHOPPE.com. And there we have a lot of different products that we make available. And this has become a full-time ministry. And so we have spent a lot of time educating people. That's my main work is teaching. And so we have now got more familiar with so many different herbs that are useful for so many different conditions. I could tell you stories all day of people that call me and tell me some amazing stories of how these remedies have helped. And we give God all the glory. He's the one that made the herb. In fact, it says in the book of Psalms, Psalm 104, verse 14, that God gave the herb for the service of men. And the word service means ministry. And herbs minister. They minister by giving. And they have high amounts of antioxidants. They have high amounts of phytochemistry. They're often high in vitamins and also minerals. And so that's how they work, by giving. Whereas on the other side of the coin, a lot of our medicine that we have today, unfortunately, is very toxic to the system. It requires nutrition to metabolize. It requires nutrition to get the drug out of the body. And often they're just tinkering with symptoms. They're not really getting to the underlying cause of the problem. So my job is to educate. And I believe if people can swallow some education, they can avoid a lot of medication. So there's only two ways we pay for our health, right? We're educated or medicated. So it would be better to be educated, because that way we can avoid a lot of the conditions that we would otherwise succumb to if we didn't have that knowledge. So we have used herbs for many different conditions, from headaches to cancer to everything in between. Send powerful and amazing results. In fact, sometimes it goes beyond what I even think the herb can do. I think God does a little extra beyond what the actual properties of the herb does. But we get a lot of people here with pain. We've seen a lot of chronic diseases, a lot of unusual diseases that we never have seen before. A lot of hormonal problems, a lot of nervous problems, a lot of endocrine issues, inflammatory situations. In fact, virtually all chronic disease is inflammatory. Even depression is inflammatory. So we're trying to work with the people. We're trying to understand the cause, how they got that particular problem. And I just want to share with you that herbs are not a replacement to a good lifestyle, right? They're not to be a crutch. They're an adjunct therapy to a healthy lifestyle. And if someone is on a healthy lifestyle, the herbs will work more in their favor. And so we encourage people to adopt a plant-based diet, avoid processed and refined foods, to do away with as many packaged items as possible, eat foods that are high in nutritional elements, fruits and vegetables and nuts, grains, legumes, seeds, and using the herbs for particular problems for a short amount of time until the body has recovered. You don't need to use herbs every day of your life. There is an exception, and that is if you're taking a herb for nutritional elements. and we call these nutritive tonics. So things that are high in nutritional value that can act as like a vitamin mineral supplement. For example, some people use nettle as a nutritional aid because nettle is one of the highest in nutrition. Out of any food or herb I know of, nettle is number one. And so that's a nutritive herb. Some people use red clover, some people use barley, some people use wheatgrass. So there are many different herbs that can be used, for building up the body and giving us the elements that we need to sustain us. And as you're probably aware, a lot of food is being depleted, and herbs carry a lot of these micro elements, a lot of these trace minerals, and even vitamins that are very hard to get in the store. And so I'm a big believer in using vitamins, but I usually steer people towards the herbs for those. In fact, we have a herb here called camu, and it's from a fruit. It's actually a tropical fruit found in the Amazon, and it's very high in vitamin C. In fact, it's highest in vitamin C than all the different plants on the planet. And 1 teaspoon is enough to give you more than a bag of oranges, right? So sometimes you don't need to take a lot of a herb to get powerful effects. Sometimes it's just small amounts. Sometimes you have to take a herb for a relatively long period of time to see some results, depending on what the situation is. We work with a lot of people that have fatigue, a lot of people have adrenal issues, and so we try to use adaptogenic herbs for them. These are herbs that are high in properties that can combat the effects of stress. And as you and I are aware, there's a lot of stress in our world today. And especially with this pandemic that's going on, a lot of people are fearful, a lot of people are anxious, they're losing their sleep, they're losing their job, and their health is breaking down, and we need to know what we can use to help aid and recover these people. And so herbs are powerful. They're our friends. Herbs are very similar to Jesus. They're often the last resort. We try everything else, and herbs are sometimes the last resort. Although over in Europe, they're becoming more and more popular. So I'm really thankful for that, especially in places like Germany. German physicians very knowledgeable in the area of herbs. And a lot of people think that herbs don't have much scientific backing, but this is absolutely false. Herbs have more clinical studies than majority of drug medications. In fact, let's just take a simple herb like turmeric, for example. Turmeric has over 6,000 clinical studies done on that. And these are not like anecdotal studies you find in a Woman's Day magazine. These are proper clinical studies that have been done by research labs around the world. So, the herbs that we use are safe. We don't use any herbs that are toxic. We don't use herbs that could create side effects. Now, there's always a possibility that a herb could produce a side effect. However, I could count on one hand the amount of side effects I've seen in taking herbs over the last several years. And the side effects have been very minor, and often they've been because the person hasn't been wise in the use of the herb. They've taken too much. All right, so let me just explain something. If you're on any medication to stabilize you in critical for critical situations, then it may not be a good idea to use a herb in conjunction with the medication, right? So just make sure you've got someone to work with you we work with doctors. In fact, I'm currently working in conjunction with a physician here in Maine. We have a clinic and a wellness center, and we are very much united in our understanding of philosophy and using when there's a place to use a herb and when there's a place to use a medication. So just work with someone who understands both, and that way it can keep you out of a lot of trouble. All right, so if in doubt, just leave it out. That's probably the best way to go. And as I said before, lifestyle is the key. If you have a good lifestyle, chances are you won't need very many herbs. In fact, you may not need any, except maybe the odd herb here and there to help you with nutritional elements. And herbal medicine is growing. It's a field that is rapidly flourishing across the world. In fact, there's over 80% of the world's population, according to the World Health Organization, that are currently using herbal remedies. We're in America, and that number is growing, but we're not quite at that point yet. But it is, according to latest statistics, one of the fastest growing industries in the health and wellness field. And so we're thankful to be a part of this. I believe that in these particular times we're living in, where things are getting increasingly harder, drug costs are getting higher, people are starting to see more the effects of taking modern medication. And I'm not saying there's not a place for it. All I'm saying is, use the natural remedies, if at all possible, as the first line of defense. It's the first line of helping your body. And usually you'll find that if you're not in situations where you absolutely need a medication, that if you know the cause and you know how to correct the cause and what herb to use, 9 times out of 10 you'll be rewarded from that wise choice. So herbs are powerful. They're like Jesus. They're humble. They're the last resort, and they're readily accessible. And we can have access to them wherever we are. We don't have to get some exotic herb from Paraguay that no one knows about. Usually, how God has created this is that the herbs that grow locally are more adapted to what we need. So you don't need to be reliant on a lot of overseas herbal remedies. We like to use extracts. These are herbal formulas. Actually, let me get one off the shelf here. Such as we have here. It's a liquid formula. We use glycerin, and we combine that with the particular herbs in a very concentrated formula, and we cook that for a few days. And so you only need a small amount instead of using a lot of herbal teas, which you'll find to take, by the way. It's just that if you take several cups of tea, they'll have you going to the toilet at night. And so we find that herbal extracts work very well in that sense. Another thing I want to share with you is that of how to use herbs in a way that is has a common sense approach. We already stated that herbs have science to back them up, and but we need to apply it intelligently. And herbs have a shelf life. They're a bit like foods. They go off. So a leaf herb only lasts you about 12 months. A root or a berry or bark is commonly about 3 to 5 years. If it's a powder, usually about 3 years. If it's dry and desiccated, usually about 5 years. So to retain maximum strength and potency, the herb has to retain its original smell. If it's lost its smell or losing its smell, it's not very strong. Chances are that herb is not going to work very well for you. And another thing to keep in mind is that a lot of the herbal products that we have out there don't have a very good, they're not very compatible with human digestion. And so we have a lot of pills that people take, a lot of capsules, and it requires hydrochloric acid for extraction. And the studies show about 38 to 52% absorption rate is from pills. So that's why we use the liquid. It has about 98% absorption rate. And so it goes straight in the bloodstream, doesn't require any digestion. And so that's a reason why we use what we use. So we have formulas for things like heart disease, help sugar control. We have things for pain, for inflammation. A lot of different, in fact, I'd say probably 99% of what people are suffering, we have something. And if we don't have what they need, we refer them to other places that have what they need. But, herbs, they work quietly behind the scenes. And as I say, they're very similar to Jesus. They are unobtrusive. It takes a little humility. Sometimes you use them, a little faith. Sometimes we don't understand how they work properly, but we know they work. That's not to say there's not a bunch of science out there to give us a lot of information how they work, but at the same time, no one knows everything about even one medication, right? Even doctors don't know all the details of how aspirin works. So we shouldn't be afraid to say, hey, we don't know all the answers here. But we don't need to. We just need to know that it works. So if you're using a herb for the right condition, for the right cause, and using it intelligently, using it safely, and using it in conjunction with proper lifestyle habits, you're going to see tremendous results. And we've seen that in our own ministry. We've seen people who have recovered. And I'm not saying the herb cured them. I'm just saying their body, through God's grace, recovered them from cancer, from all kinds of conditions. So too many to even enumerate. We've seen autoimmune diseases. We've seen a lot of severe pain. A lot of people having pain, and the pain is often nerve pain or an injury. And we've been working with people who are trying to get off of some painkillers. And as I say, you need to know what you're doing. So this is not something that I can just name a herb and say this will help you with everything to do with pain. But there are some wonderful, wonderful agents that can be used to help in multitudes of conditions. If we just know, and you don't need to learn 1,000 different herbs. You don't need to understand, have a library of herb books, right? I would just encourage you to learn, say 20, 30 different herbs that have powerful effects that could cover majority of most conditions. All right, most herbalists, they learn between 1,000 and 2,000 herbs. And we have a herbal training course where we actually cover at least 1,000 different herbs. But for the majority of people, you just need to learn maybe a couple of dozen and learn them well, and that would suffice for the majority of diseases. And if you go to our website, we have little video clips on particular herbs that we feel are very effective for different conditions. And so you may want to check out the short little videos, and about 5 minutes long, and covering different herbs and what they do. And even though I didn't put it up there, there's some of the top 20 herbs that I recommend. If you ask different herbalists, they'll give you their top 20 as well, which will be different than mine, but that's fine. We use what we're familiar with, and we recommend those things that we've seen results for. And so I'm very encouraged, very blessed, be a part of this ministry. I believe that it's going to grow more and more, and God seems to be given us a lot of challenging conditions so that we can, even in our own family, so that we can come up with another remedy for someone else. So if you have any questions or any comments, you can go to our website. You can contact us through our website, and we offer, a lot of free information, and we'll email you back if you have a particular question about a condition and what would be a good thing to use for that. You can always reach out to us. We're here to serve. We're here to be a blessing to a neighbor and to anyone who has a need. So anyway, that's my little testimony. It's a testimony that continues every day. We're very thankful that God has given us this ministry. We want to include you to be part of that story as well. And I want to encourage you to understand more about how these things can work and how they can benefit you. There's a lot of simple herbs that you could grow even in your own garden that can have powerful effects. You don't need to have much land. In fact, just in a 10 by 10 square foot garden, you can have about 100 different herbs, and that could be enough for using for a family of four for the whole year round. So, and if you want to join us, we also have a webinar subscription that you can join, and we get key speakers from around the country talking about different remedies, different herbs, and different diseases, and how we can help with that as well. So I just want to thank you all for listening, and I pray that God will richly bless you as you endeavor to learn more about these things. And we want to be here to offer our assistance if you have any questions, how to get more involved in the study of these things and how to use them intelligently. So God bless you all. Thanks for joining us today, and I look forward to joining you again in the near future. Thank you so much. God bless.